welcome to Winnipeg. Now, I am feeling empty this morning. Not as empty as I felt last night, but I'm still feeling a little bit empty. There's a void in my life, you might say, and here's what's happened. I'm guessing within the last month, when my neighbor was over having coffee, he was mentioning every once in a while he asks how the model ship's coming and so on, and he mentioned about all these episodes that are up on YouTube. They're going to be sort of like a legacy. And in other words, after I'm gone, they'll keep going. And it'd be interesting to know just how long something like this is going to last. You know, is some sort of global calamity going to take YouTube down and all the data is going to be wiped? Because that's all it is. It's just in the memory of servers. Anyway. I'm guessing about 3 weeks ago, one of my Facebook friends puts up, or YouTube friends, he puts up a video on the HMS Hood that he's building. And I've been following him and he's been following me, and if I think of it, I'll put a photo that he sent me of himself watching one of my episodes. This goes back a ways. But he used to watch every day. At least he said he did. And I believe him. So he became a cyber friend. And what I did was, when he put the update from his HMS Hood build, I made a little comment. But I got no reply to the comment. Then about 5 days ago, he put up an episode on a model of a wooden ship that he's building. And unlike me, who always sticks with the same model day after endless day, well, he had a variety of things that he used to like to do. And so he put so anyway, I commented on his little wooden model episode, and once again, no reply. And I thought, well, that's strange, and then I thought that's so unlike him. Anyway, the person is Jim Steen from the 1/200 scale model ship club. In fact, I guess it seems to be just recently I talked about the ant crawling on the deck of his hood when he was building it, and I mentioned how the crew is trying to escape, if you remember. Well, that was Jim. So anyway, I checked last night, and it turns out that Jim has died. Wow. He was the exact same age as me, give or take a few weeks, you know. And so I'm feeling really empty here. There's sort of a void in my life. Oh, I'll get over it. I mean, Gabe is coming later, and that's why I got the other camera set up. He mentioned how he's quite willing to go on camera and do his show and tell. He's going to be bringing something. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I believe it's painting related, because that's his sort of expertise. So we'll see. What he's going to tell us. And when he gets here, you might say the floor is his. You know, he can just talk about whatever he wants. I did nothing new on our model yesterday. We're going to move on a little bit further today and this morning, and while we're waiting for Gabe to come, and try and make some parts here. We gotta find K35, K19, K10. Piece of photo etch. Anyway, Yeah. Uh, yeah. Jim Steen is going to be missed. He in the model community, at least in his model community, he was a real contributor. Real contributor. So yeah, rest in peace, Jim Steen. Well, he is here. This is Gabe. You remember him from what? Was it 3 months ago?
About that, I think, yeah.
About 3 months ago, yeah. And he has brought some stuff that he's going to show us. And my plan is, I'm always saying this is the plan. Well, this is the plan. And what I'm going to do is when he's showing something, I'm hoping that I can, bring the camera over and dub in what he's showing us so that you'll be able to see it better later. At least that's the plan. So as I mentioned earlier this morning in my beginning, the floor is yours.
Well, did you want to open up these little things that I brought for you?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, first of all, Gabe already showed me this. He brought some paint filters. If you remember, some of you viewers had actually suggested paint filters. Now I've got a genuine one. Can these be cleaned or are they one time only?
I think one time only.
One time only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you find them useful, I could send you the link where I get them from.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so got that, and we've got something from Amazon. Oh my goodness.
And I'll guide you as to what order to open things. So this all started with...
I see something.
Yeah, that's the first one. So Barnacle Bill lost his head.
Yeah, he
and
did.
I said, I can make you another one. And it's taken me 3 months. Yeah, you can take that out. That's just something else. Just don't take the cover off yet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, okay.
There's some, I see.
You'll see that later.
There's something hidden inside there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this little cup here are some extra officers for your U.S. Navy ship. So for your Iowa.
So these will be for the Iowa.
Yeah, and a couple of them have stands on them. So I print different types to see which kind of work out. So some of them have a base on them, and some of them just have their feet.
Let's just see if we can maybe get this over here, and just see if I can get the camera in here so that you can see these. And maybe it should be safe to just dump them out, right?
Oh yeah, I put a coat of matte varnish on them.
Okay, now I do not have on the macro lens, so we'll just have to get in here as best we can, and zoom in, and try and focus. All right, yeah, you can see them down there. Yeah. Get the idea of the scale.
Yeah.
We'll put the macro lens on afterwards, and when I get a chance, and we'll move in nice and close and take a look at some of this.
So this should look familiar. This is my replacement for Barnacle Bill.
Okay.
And so you could just flip that tape off at along the rod there, and then slide. That should slide off.
Why don't I let you do it?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I gotcha. I tried not to make it too tough. And go figure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you just be able to slide that off, and that is your replacement.
He's
for Barnacle Bill.
He's on this end.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Barnacle Bill's replacement.
Yeah.
Let's just see if I can get in on that. Well, once again, we're probably going to get him in the center there.
Yeah. And he looks very officious or officer-like inspecting things.
Okay. So Barnacle Bill has been moved up in rank, has he?
Well, he's headless, right? And so I could get you another Royal Navy perspective rod, but this one I'll show you a little bit later.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So these are a couple of things. You wonder why it took me 3 months to give you a little guy like that. Well, I had other ideas as well.
Okay, so this is garbage now.
Here, maybe open this one first.
This one?
It doesn't really matter, but yeah, that one first. You probably slice a knife across the top It'll just fall out. So I told you
that's
before.
a good size.
Yeah, told you before that you can go to
You're gonna
to a website and create characters. It's like a very elaborate Mr. Potato Head on the computer.
He's kind of stuck in his across here.
Yeah, so you get the idea. You can cut her open.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness! Like it's on the bottom, it says the model ship. I'm sure you're going to be able to read that okay. And let's just see if I can. Look at that, a camera. Oh, does it say Nikon on it?
I forgot to put that on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Look at this. Oh my goodness, the detail in that. Let me get the other camera going here, and we'll just zoom this in. There we go. We got it on my face. All right. Now, and a rabbit. Honestly. And does that say Greyhound on it?
It does say Greyhound on the shirt. That's the exact same logo that you got there.
Oh,
I found it on the internet and printed it on decal paper.
For goodness sakes. You know what? I'm going to have to take some nice close-ups of it and put them at the end of the video.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And so you got another one for me?
Got another one.
Let's pull this out of the way here. Okay, so this one also says the model ship on it. And a yellow shirt. A yellow shirt.
And could you see what's on the front?
Oh, that's Jeff's Bismarck.
It is.
So Jeff in, I think, North Carolina, if you're watching. Yeah, and have I got this in focus? I don't think I do. I'm having trouble getting my autofocus to work here. It just won't grasp it. Maybe I'm too close here. Let's back off just a little bit. There, it's in focus now. Yeah, there you go, Jeff.
And did you notice the mug?
I gotta put on my other glasses. I'm at that age, I gotta keep changing eyes here. Oh, pizza day. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Tennessee Jim, you're famous too. Yeah, it was Tennessee Jim that sent that pizza mug.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I thought of Tennessee Jim when I wore this shirt today. Tennessee Science Teachers Association.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So,
Right. This one.
Another one?
Another one. This won't be so much of a surprise, but again, you can go at it with a knife.
I just don't want to break anything.
Yeah. These are pretty resilient. There's all kinds of different formulas of resin that you can print things with. So I created this on a website and downloaded it and printed it on my printer. And so once you have it, you can print it any size. So that'll look familiar.
Okay, that's the same as the other one, only half size, or maybe even not even.
Yeah, I think it's half scale, so about a quarter the size. Yeah. And you'll notice the mug is slightly different. I don't know if you can identify it. This one's really small. Gave me a little bit of trouble.
That is small.
Yeah.
Okay, see if we can move in here.
But there's a hint on your shelf there, because what's the color on the rim there?
Okay, is this the Iowa one?
No,
No?
it's red. It's the...
Okay, I'm gonna just hang on a second.
You want me to just tell you?
Yeah, why don't you just tell me?
It's the Yamato.
the Yamato.
And I found the same graphic and made
Okay.
a tiny decal out of it. So.
Yeah, all right. All right, we got it. Okay. Well, why don't we move into your That's it for the.
Last one.
Oh, one
So
more.
this will make sense here. I'll help get this off. Now this one will probably be a little fragile. And I don't know if you can tell.
Let's zoom in. No, and there's a camera on there. It looks like you're holding a camera, right? It's the
same model.
I see. I'll have to be really careful with this one.
Yeah, the arms will be very frail in this way, so
be easy to catch the camera on something.
Yeah.
Okay. This is something else that I will later put the macro lens on and show you after. It may not even be in this episode because I got a feeling we're going to be going on and on here. All right. I'm going to put these in here so they don't get lost, and these are for the Iowa ship.
Yeah.
And okay, and I'll put this away. All right. Now I've already told the viewers that in all likelihood you're going to be demonstrating painting or something. So
yeah, I'll just show a few things and some of the things I learned. And I have to say that when I started these large figures of yours, I recorded. I set up my iPad and I painted most of the model, talking about how I go through the process. And
is it on your channel then, or?
Well, it would have been if I had pressed record. So
Oh, you do that too.
I was so angry, I gave up. I never did it. I will do that if you want. I will do a video of how I do things. But better, I should probably send you the links of the people who I've watched who've taught me how to do this kind of painting. So I wanted to point out that I paint with acrylics. And so it's a little bit different. I prefer them. And I know painting is all, these are...
Okay, is this XF paint, not acrylic?
It's acrylic, but these are water-based. And that one's solvent-based. So
Okay.
You thin it with IPA, is it?
You can, yes. And,
or with their thinner.
Their thinner, yeah, which I believe is isopropyl.
Yeah, so these are all water-based. Okay. And makes things a little bit easier. I can even spray paint. I do have a small booth, but it's not the solvents that I worry about. It's the paint particles. So the booth, it's a tiny little thing. It'll suck the particles, trap them, and if water vapor comes out the back, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Those kind of look like Vallejo bottles.
They are. They're Vallejo and also AK. So these are primarily the two brands that I use. Oh, an Army Painter. And Army Painter came out with a product that has just taken the miniature, especially painting, by storm. And I'll talk about that. So people may want to check it out because it's made painting really easy to get really nice results for novices. Like, you don't have to be an artist to do this. So anyhow, these are different types of paints that I use along the line. For your models, I primarily used the speed paints. And speed paints are a new product that came out just last year. They've already come out with a 2.0, and I haven't tried it out yet. I bought some. But they are so popular and have taken off by storm. They've sort of revolutionized the miniature painting world. And what they do is they're made for one coat. And they will give, if I may grab one of your models here.
Yep.
So if you take a look at the blue and the rabbit and the flesh colors, those are painted with the speed paints. And what they have is a resin in them that pools in deep areas, and it gives you a nice sort of depth. Instead of flat, you get this idea of shadows and highlights without having to paint shadows and highlights, which is what most people were forced to do if they wanted good-looking models. So, and they're very quick. They're called speed paints because it's one coat, and then you go to the next.
But one coat, it doesn't have to be no primer or anything.
I prime everything.
Prime.
That's one of the things that I do. And
that's one of the things I should do.
Yeah, and you run the risk. You may lose fine detail if you just don't prime it exactly the way it should be. But actually, thanks to you, I have picked up an airbrush and I use airbrush. So I've been experimenting with that and playing with that. So speed paints allow you to get these interesting kind of variations in paint. So they're not flat. The bright yellow, though, is not a speed paint. So you don't see as many shadows. And I could have painted them in by mixing the yellow with other colors and to bring it out. But that would be a lot of work. And I'm not that skilled. So these paints do the work for me.
So that's just one coat basically,
Yep.
and you just went darker and lighter to represent the.
The paint did most of that itself.
Oh, it did, eh?
Yeah, and if I wanted darker, I could dab in a little bit while it's still wet. I could dab in a little bit to make shadows a little bit darker, and but otherwise it does that for you. And the rabbit, I primed it white and put this kind of gray brown over top of it. And it did the rest. So it makes it look much more what they call less flat instead of just one color and no shading. So these gradations and everything are just as a result of the paint. So people can get wonderful results just by trying something like speed paint. I don't get any. I wish I could get some consideration for plugging their product, but I don't. It's a wonderful product, and but there's still place for the sort of standard acrylics, and or water-based acrylics. So I brought deck tan and black red, which I used here. And if you take a look,
Okay, this would be the deck tan, right?
the deck tan. If you could see faint lines, I'd actually scored it and put the same the deck highlighter that you use, the dark deck highlighter. I put that on. When I went to varnish this, I went outside and it had rained earlier. And that comes into play of all things. I put it on my little work table outside where I can spray, and this was a rattle can. So I sprayed it, and it looked great. And when I came back, a drop of water must have fallen off a tree over top of this table, because this and the other model were festooned with, it looked like very big seagulls had come by. And so I had to sand it off and paint back, and I didn't have the heart to put the deck liner on again. So I bet you if you put deck liner, those little grooves may show up, but I just didn't feel like doing it. So I'm giving you a confession.
So this deck liner, would that be like what I call panel line accent
Panel
color?
line, that's exactly it. That's
Okay.
exactly it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I even went and got the Tamiya panel liner. That's it. And
Okay.
so and I had that done, and just at the last minute. So that was another hold this off a week or two till I sand it all off and paint it again. And I just didn't feel like trusting my work on the panel liner again. So the other things that when I use these types of paints is I use a wet palette, which I fell in love with. Now this is one that I got for Father's Day or Christmas, I believe, and but I had a homemade one. And all this is a tray, and it has just a sponge in the bottom. So that's just a sponge. You soak it in water. This is parchment paper. And so you could buy their product, or literally you could get your own sponge and your own parchment paper, lay it on. If you feel it, it's going to be damp.
Do you know, I don't know if it was you or somebody was talking about this on YouTube about a year ago, and I was trying to figure it out. So
Yeah.
So you're going to demonstrate that?
Yeah, but for most of the time, I had my homemade one, which was a Tupperware container with paper towels and parchment on it. But only because I said, you know what, I'll put it on my list for Christmas and see if anyone wants to. So what you do is you make sure that it's wet. At this time, I may...
And the moisture then keeps oozing through the parchment, does it?
just enough that the paints don't dry. So I could sit here and mix paints or thin them mostly, and I could come back in 1 or 2 days, and I could still use the paints.
If you kept the lid on.
And that's what this stuff here is. Okay. And I found that it really has sort of helped me control paints a lot better, especially on my brush. And you get the right thinness, so you can play and play and play on the palette, and then go to the model when you're good and ready. So
that would not work with oil-based paint then, would it?
This would not. You can thin oil-based with other thinners, but I think you're going to be inhaling the thinners and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's another advantage of acrylics is you can work on them for quite some time.
And this just keeps it from drying out.
Yeah, and it allows you to mix, and you use very small amounts, so you're not wasting a lot of paint. I mean, you just put a drop down at a time. Like if you're painting something this big, you don't need a lot of paint. And so you put tiny drops, you then add a little bit of water, and you can just sort of modify it slightly when you've got the right consistency. And a lot of that is preference and feel. And generally, people say thinner is better, and putting 2 thin coats is better than putting 1 thick coat. And you're familiar with that with painting your models.
Finally.
Yeah. But I'm kind of impatient, and I'm still a bit old school. So I kind of like doing things 1 coat. So which is another reason why the speed paints really suit me, because I could just put them on. I can thin them with a bit of water or their own medium. It's like a water-based resin medium, and it'll become lighter colors and move a little bit more than right out of the bottle. I also wanted to say that acrylics are great to airbrush, and you can even buy them pre-mixed. So this is Vallejo Air, and so I got a couple of colors there. And a friend of mine asked if I could print some of these for him. He's a tabletop army battler. So this was spray painted in 2 colors. I didn't have the air color. I just took the regular AK color, I believe it was, and just mixed it with water and made sure it was thin.
Now, did you get this from program, or did you have to do this in Fusion?
Yeah, this one was designed already. He bought the STL file, it's called.
Okay.
And once I get that, then I can use my software to slice it, it's called, and make it ready for printing. So I've been doing these for a while for him, and I hadn't painted or airbrushed a vehicle since I was a teenager. So I figured, I'll try this out. So this is just the base coat of over a primer. If you take a look, I used a technique that I thought was going to look horrible, but if you take a look, it seems to be dark in the panel recesses, kind of like already there's a...
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, especially here on the side.
Yeah. And so this was primed white, and then I took my airbrush with black. I think it was primer. It was black, flat black, and I just went around every single panel line and every little sort of joint in the steel or in the iron here, and just had this. It looked quite ugly, and I thought, oh, this is a mess. This is a total mess. But then I sprayed over with the green, and it has this really nice 3D kind of used effect. And that was just, other than white primer, black paint, green paint, that's all that's on there. And I didn't have to pick up a brush or anything. And yeah.
Now, when you 3D printed this, did it come with the turret on, or was that separate?
That's actually separate. Depends on the model maker, like if they make them separate or not. So this is separate. So that was printed separately, and and you can get an idea. You see a bit of primer in the turret there. So, but it was such an easy thing to do, and that I just mixed water-based acrylics using water and a little bit of airbrush thinner, and that worked really well. And so I was quite pleased. This is the first time I've airbrushed with acrylics.
Were you planning on demonstrating how you paint things?
I
Sometime?
can, yeah. So I'll talk about how to use a wet palette and
That
kind of
would
how
be
I
really interesting,
Yeah.
actually.
Now,
I had heard about this, but I've never tried it, so this is
Yeah.
going to be really interesting.
can I just get a small amount of water, or any kind of,
Water? Yeah.
just for dipping or something like that?
I'll get you
I'm going to take some of that, just pour it in here just a little bit. And I got I'll use this over here. Little Dollarama squeegee. Or actually, I think I got this at Princess Auto in a auto body kit. This is for spreading putty. And I just cut it nice and small. So it's going to be kind of nice and wet. Pushed out all the bubbles from underneath the paper. And so if I say I'll pick up this black red, this is straight acrylics. I shook them up a couple of days ago, but
Okay, everything you're going to do is going to be basically in this area?
yep, and I'll just use it on here. So.
Okay. All right, we're focused.
Okay. So I love dropper bottles. They're so much easier to use than pots. And so this is what you do. It's a bit wet for my liking, but I'll use it for demonstration. So I drop, that's about all I need. I'm painting a tiny model. And at the time, what I can do is I'll show you.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in. You can see on the screen here what you're getting and what you're not. So...
I'll talk about these guys a little bit. So, and you'd be surprised, even on small models like this, this is like my #1 brush. And for the details, this is my brush. So it's not that small.
No, it's not.
No.
In fact, I was using one something like that yesterday.
And I'm just using the water to help...
Pointy it.
and that's what you do. Oh, and here's a trick. You use the crease in your hand to help make it into a point. So that point is what I would paint with if I'm doing tiny details. If I was doing highlighting, I would actually use the side of the brush and run it along the edges of things. If I wanted to make something pop with a bit of highlight, I would use the side of the brush. But that's like the smallest brush I use. I used to have tiny brushes to try and get all the details, but I find just using a round brush, synthetic, drawn to a point, you get very fine results. I was painting the ties on your little 1/200th sailors with that brush. Not and so for something like this, I would actually go to a large brush. Now you see the paint has moved quite a lot. This palette was a bit wet. I overdid it, but now I can sort of mix it, and when I feel like it's a good consistency, I'm just going to pick up a little bit more water. Okay, there we go. So I
Okay.
feel like I can do a coat here.
So if you could hold it, just over
Okay.
about that distance,
Yeah.
it should be.
So I'll just do his hat here, and I can feel that the primer is grabbing the paint. It's not sloshing around on top of his head here. And so then...
Did you spray that primer on?
I did, yes. And I'll actually talk about how I primed it, because that's another technique that's used. The big thing for miniature painters is they want things to look realistic, and so they try shading and highlighting to make details pop out, and make them a little bit more 3D than a 2D toy. And even though it's a 3D toy, when you paint them, they just sort of lose their 3 dimensions. So I'm not going to spend too much more time. The other thing about using small amounts of paint is, you okay if I clean in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to wreck. I had a paper towel somewhere. Oh, I'm gonna borrow yours if that's okay.
No problem.
Okay.
That's what it's been used for.
So is that the paint dries very quickly, so you should clean your brush nonstop. I'm using tiny amounts of paint, especially with the smaller brush. The other thing is never dip the paint to the ferrule, because you'll make your brush turn into a porcupine as opposed to a nice cohesive point. So clean the brush often and start over again. So that's the first coat of black red on his hat there. And again, the wet palette, I can close this up, come back, and I could probably reconstitute a little bit of that if I need touch-ups and things like that, or just add more and mix it in.
A paint jar would last forever.
Pretty much. Like I have not finished one of these. I haven't been painting probably as much as I'd hoped, but that's how I use a wet palette. I can mix colors on this. So that's another thing. Did I bring? Well, I'll just mix deck 10 and again these. I can't remember the last time I. Oh, and the nice thing about a lot of these manufacturers are putting ball bearings in there. You might hear it clicking in there.
I think I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I may have put one in. So again, one drop. And my palette's a bit too wet, I could tell, because it's spreading out. But
okay, so we're going to be working right around here, are we?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and see if we can pinpoint focus on that. And get it nice and sharp right on that area.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll just put a little bit more black red there. And that's what I used for your base. It's like this is your hull red.
Hull red, yeah.
That's the color you would use, and so that's why that base has the hull red on it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can mix on here, so I'll just pick up a little bit of that. You don't want to contaminate your colors too much. So I'm getting a little bit of a more, and again, the palette is a bit too wet for my liking, but you get the idea. So I can mix that color there. Nice thing about that is, close this up, come back after supper or whatever, and I could pick that paint up again, and I know what I mixed. And so if I have a sort of a custom color that I used, and maybe I'm using that for highlights or something like this, so I could put it on the edges of the hat. This is very crude.
Would it be possible
to
do it right down in this area? Yeah.
So I can use a color like that's been dulled down as like a highlight. So now the first coat is looking like the shadows in the hat, and I'm kind of rushing this. I would normally not go quite that fast or whatever, but I'm getting a little bit more 3D effect. That's what I'm after, and it's not working very well right now. But you get the idea that
it never works when record is pressed. Everything goes wrong. That's it's part of Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I think you're right, and so again, if you're going to do painting, especially small stuff, that brush will dry out very quickly with tiny amounts of paint. So wash it regularly, keep it wet, and a wet palette allows me so many things. I think when I get to very tiny work, yeah. So if I wanted to use a tiny brush like this, that paint is a bit too thick for me, and again. So what I do is I work with a bit of water. I'm just going to pick some off the palette here. And by the way, this is fresh paper and a fresh sponge. It didn't look like this yesterday. You use it until you can't see anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm just testing the paint on the palette, and when I get a nice feel and I could get a very fine line, then I could go in here and try to do some very fine work. And again, this is all just for show, but I can try and get some fine work in.
Okay.
So I got a tiny highlight, you can say maybe embroidery or something like that, on his hood there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a little messy for my liking, but again, on camera, and so of course Murphy's Law takes over.
That's right, yeah.
And every time you wet the brush, bring it back to a point. And I lay my brushes down. Some people have holders that hold them vertically like this. Mm-hmm. It's the best, because if you have any paint on your bristle and you put them in a jar like
I
this, the paint will work its way into the ferrule. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while I use Windex and loosen mine up.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, I try to I leave them flat. The ones I use the most, the ones I'm storing, like something like this, which is probably my workhorse size, which is exactly that one. I think they're the same size. So that's my workhorse brush, what I use for most of my painting. Not very big, and so there we go.
Very pointy.
Very pointy, yeah. And this is pretty stiff. People actually use hair products to point them against, like hair modeling clay.
But then when you start using it, it softens up.
Well, you rinse it and it softens up, yeah. But it's one way to get your bristles back into the right shape. So I'm going to leave this with you so you can play.
Oh, okay. I'll
There
put this in my...
Yeah. So that's a synthetic round brush and brought to a point. So if you ever want to try getting something, and you could use it with any paints. You don't need to use it with water-based acrylics. You can, but
that's a beautiful brush.
And looks can be deceiving. that's probably one of the cheapest brushes I could get on Amazon. So that's a wet palette. I'd like to just mention how I prime things sometimes. And this is a new thing. I'm just going to move this out of the way. So this is little characters that I created for my...
Where are you going to be doing your work?
Right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just move over there then.
Yeah. So this is a character that I created, much like yours, and I put on my Santa Maria. I don't know if you saw the video.
Yeah.
You'd see these kooky little characters. Well, that's sort of a joke that's my son and my daughter-in-law. So so they know what it is, and they're the only people who need to know. And so these were primed just with white, and again I used an airbrush.
Has your son received his gift yet?
He has, yes. I can talk about it, and they've got it, yes. And so I printed two of these. One was a mistake. This one was the mistake. It was too large for scale, so I had to print a smaller one. So the smaller one went on the model. This one was for testing out paints, and this is where I'm going to show you the speed paints. But okay, so this is just white primer. This one looks a bit different. If you could see, it's kind of black and gray and white, and this is called zenithal highlighting. It's zenith means right up above, so it means highlighting from above. So to make more of a 3D effect when you paint things, you can use the primer to help you create shadows instead of using a speed paint. So this was first primed black completely, and I think I used a rattle can for that. So rattle can black, and then with my airbrush, I just did white from above. So I was pointing down at an angle, and I would hit the highlight areas, but I purposely left places like under the arms, under the cloak here, everything. I left the black. I tried not to put as much black as I could.
Where there would naturally be a shadow.
Exactly. So now I could paint with one color, and it will, like the tank, you'll see the black coming through, which will give you the sort of like, it looks like I worked hard to make a simple effect.
Okay, we're going to take a pause here.
Yeah.
I think I heard my camera shut down.
Oh,
so
sorry. Here I am saying it wouldn't be half an hour. You got 39 minutes. Yike.
Okay, we are up and running again. It's the school teacher in you coming out.
Yeah, I think so. Here's speed paints. So speed paints, you can mix, you can thin, but I tend to use them straight out of the bottle. They come with you could definitely hear the ball bearing in there, and they come with it. So I use this Dollarama paint well. And I'll just put a little bit of paint in there, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
And you'll be surprised.
Where are you going to be doing your work?
I'll do it right over here.
Right there, and
yeah.
that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this one, you actually, it's called paint inside the lines.
Okay.
Now,
I'm just going to put something sharp there that I can focus on. Here we go.
Okay, so this guy, I'm going to paint his jacket, and this is that zenithal highlighting again. So I'm just going to take this paint, and this might look familiar. So when I paint, you're literally dropping it on in large amounts.
And letting it flow around.
Letting it flow around, and you really don't want to hit areas outside the cloak, so I should be a little bit more careful doing this, but I'm just for demonstration. And you can see almost immediately that I'm getting a deep blue in the crevices, and I'm getting highlights in the upper areas because the paint is flowing
off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so I'm just going to stop there, and you can get an idea of the kind of effect you can get. Oops.
Well, folks, I have to apologize here because unbeknownst to me, the memory card on the camera that's sitting on the model table that I was using to get the close-ups, I guess it filled up. And I did not notice that my little red dot on my monitor had disappeared. I thought because I was being able to see what I was doing, I was getting everything. I was just so interested in what Gabe was talking about here. Anyway, all we're going to get now is just the wide-angle view. Nothing I can do about it. As I've said before, it is what it is.
And so just keep going. The thing is, you want to do it all in one go. You don't want to stop because then you'll see a line between where you stopped painting and picked it up again. So
I see.
Yeah.
Would that be because it has dried, or just
yes.
because it has dried?
Yeah, it dries quickly. It sets more than dries at first. That's what I'm going to say, because it's this resin, and I'm being a little sloppy, but oops, very sloppy. And but what it does is it allows you to get those nice 3D effects. So I'll just put them there. And
so would these particular figures be of any particular video series or anything like that? Like would they be characters with a name? Or
this one isn't. This is kind of like, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Mad Max.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, okay, so kind of futuristic.
Is Mad Max an Australian thing? Or?
It started off Australian and then very much Australian. And
okay. So Aussie Frenchman, do you hear that?
So this particular character was a set called, I can't remember, but it was supposed to be sort of dystopian future kind of thing. So he's got lots of tech, and his face is covered because everything's ugly in the future in terms of the atmosphere and things like this. But anyhow, that was a free model that I downloaded and printed, and in fact this is a failed print. So there, if you look here, you can see that the print, I didn't put enough supports when I printed it, because there's a gantry of supports that hold these while they're being printed, and I just missed putting a couple of supports, and so that part of his cloak didn't turn out. But I thought it was good to show for demonstrations, no problem. Mm-hmm. And when he dries, he'll be flat, and the highlights.
But he will still remain. The highlights will still show up.
Yeah. So you can see here, I was practicing with these characters, and that's one coat, one color, mm-hmm. and they give you that nice 3D effect.
How long would it take you to? Well, you couldn't draw something like that yourself, most likely in Fusion, but
there are programs that let you do that.
You'd have to be gifted in it as an artist, I think, to be able to do that.
I think at some point you go from wooden-looking characters to real-looking characters. That's where the artistry comes in. I could make something that looks wooden.
Like a stick man.
No, it would look like a human, but it would look like a doll.
Oh, okay.
Like plastic and not formed, like it's not posed properly. An artist really brings out the poses and things like that. So you can do that. There are. And many people do, and there's many free ones. And free programs that let you do that kind of designing.
Yeah, Fusion did have a free version, and I tried it a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and then it just got too complicated for me, and I realized I don't have a 3D printer. What am I doing wasting so much time here?
And actually, I was using it last night. A friend of mine wanted cannons, so I was designing cannons for him. And once you get used to it, it works pretty well. And it still is free. There is a free version.
Yeah.
And that's about all I really wanted to show you.
That was it. Well, you know what? If we're basically done here, I think this episode is, there's a lot of editing here that I have to do. So I think I'm going to wind today's episode up, folks. So thanks for watching, and all being well, we're going to see you tomorrow. And Gabe, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you, and I'm sorry I took up so much of your time here.
This is great. This is great.
Well, thank you.
Okay.